Welcome to the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Enjoy the listening.
The quantum tunnel fractured mid-transit, and Jonas felt his world dissolving into a kaleidoscope of impossible colors. One moment he was in the sterile bay of the Starship Odyssey, the next his senses were overwhelmed by a symphony of alien stimuli. The last coherent thought he managed before oblivion claimed him was a bitter curse aimed at the engineers who'd promised this new teleportation technology was foolproof. He awoke to the oppressive humidity of an alien jungle. Emerald sunlight filtered through colossal leaves, casting dappled patterns on the forest floor. The air was thick with the scent of unknown flora, a sweet, cloying aroma that both intrigued and unsettled him. His tongue tasted of copper and something else, something distinctly organic. As his vision cleared, Jonas took stock of his surroundings with the practiced calm of a seasoned xenobiologist. His research gear was gone, presumably scattered across whatever corner of the galaxy he'd landed in. His enviro suit, however, was mostly intact, though its power cells were dead. Useless weight. The jungle was unlike anything he'd encountered in the exoplanetary databases. Towering trees with smooth, almost polished bark formed a dense canopy overhead. Strange, bioluminescent fungi glowed softly at their bases, casting an eerie light in the shadows. Well, he muttered, retrieving a useless scanner from his belt, this is certainly one way to make first contact. A rustle in the canopy above froze him in place. Years of fieldwork had instilled in him a healthy respect for alien ecosystems. On an unknown world, being prey was far more likely than being predator. He pressed himself against the trunk of a massive tree, its bark surprisingly warm to the touch. The sound came again, closer this time. Through gaps in the foliage, he caught glimpses of movement, too controlled to be animal, too precise to be wind. His heart rate spiked. Whatever was up there was hunting him. "I know you're there," he called out, keeping his voice steady. "I'm a peaceful researcher from Earth. I mean no harm." Musical laughter echoed through the trees, followed by words in a language that sounded like a blend of ancient Sanskrit and something utterly alien. Before he could process this linguistic impossibility, a figure dropped from above with impossible grace. Jonas's breath caught in his throat. She was humanoid, but unlike any species on record. Tall and athletic, with skin the deep blue of Earth's oceans and eyes that gleamed like polished silver. Her clothing was minimal, seemingly grown rather than manufactured, clinging to a form that defied evolutionary logic with its perfection. A weapon of unknown design was slung across her back. "Earth," she said, her accent exotic but the word clear. "The cradle world." A smile curved her lips as she stalked toward him with predatory grace. "How fascinating. You know of Earth?" Jonas asked, his scientific mind racing even as his instincts screamed at him to run. "How is that possible?" "Oh, we know many things, Skyfallen One." She circled him, silver eyes scanning every detail. "I am Kaya, High Priestess of the Daughters of Eden. And you are either salvation or sacrifice. The trials will determine which." More figures emerged from the jungle, all female, all with the same blue skin and impossible beauty, all armed. They moved with the coordination of apex predators. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding," Jonas said, raising his hands slowly. "I'm just a researcher. My transportation system malfunctioned." "There are no accidents in the prophecies," Kaya cut him off. "You will come with us to the great city. Resist, and we will take you anyway, though perhaps in smaller pieces." Her smile sharpened. "Choose wisely, Earthman." Jonas weighed his options. He was outnumbered, unarmed, and completely lost on an alien world. Something in Kaya's eyes told him she wasn't bluffing about the smaller pieces. "Lead the way," he said with a sigh. "Though I'd appreciate keeping all my parts attached." Kaya laughed, the sound both alluring and dangerous. "I like this one," she declared to her warriors. "Perhaps the trials will prove, interesting after all. They moved through the jungle with inhuman speed and agility, forcing Jonas to push himself to his limits to keep up. The vegetation grew stranger as they traveled. Trees seemed to pulse with bioluminescence. Flowers tracked their movement. Vines shifted to clear their path. Your jungle appears to be semi-sentient, he observed between breaths. Remarkable bioengineering if artificial. If natural, even more fascinating. You notice much for a male, Kaya called back. Most are too distracted by other features to see the truth of Eden. I'm a xenobiologist. Noticing things is my job. He ducked under a shifting branch, though I admit, there are many distracting features to process. Her laughter echoed back again. Careful, Skyfallen one. Flattery will not spare you from the trials. What exactly are these trials, he asked, but before she could answer, the jungle parted to reveal their destination. The city defied physics and imagination. Massive structures of living crystal and bioorganic material spiraled into the emerald sky. Energy pulsed through transparent conduits like artificial arteries. Gardens grew vertically up the sides of buildings that seemed to breathe and shift in the light of 3 setting suns. Welcome to New Eden, Kaya said, watching his awe with satisfaction. The last city of the true, inheritors of creation's greatest works. She touched his arm, her fingers leaving trails of warmth through his suit. Try not to die too quickly in the trials. You're far more interesting than our last candidate. What happened to him? He failed. She smiled, spectacularly. The warriors led them through streets that hummed with energy and life. The city's population appeared to be entirely female, all with the same blue skin and ethereal beauty, though varying in other features. They watched Jonas pass with expressions ranging from curiosity to hunger to outright hostility. They arrived at a vast structure that seemed to be part temple, part laboratory. Inside, advanced biotechnology merged seamlessly with what appeared to be religious iconography. Ancient symbols covered walls of living crystal, and holographic displays showed data in a script that teased at the edges of recognition. In a vast central chamber, a council of elaborately adorned women awaited them. Kaya took her place at their center, somehow even more commanding on her crystalline throne. Sisters of Eden, she addressed the gathered crowd, her voice carrying effortlessly, the prophecies spoke true. In our hour of need, the stars have delivered unto us a son of the cradle world. She fixed Jonas with those mesmerizing silver eyes. But is he our salvation, or merely another sacrifice to the great work? The trials will reveal all. She rose and approached him, her movement hypnotic. What say you, Jonas of Earth? Will you face our trials, or shall we end this quickly? He met her gaze steadily. I'd like to know what I'm agreeing to first, and why I'm here at all. Bold, Kaya purred. Good. The meek ones bore me. She gestured, and a holographic display sprang to life, showing genetic sequences that made Jonas's eyes widen in professional shock. Your people are dying, he said, reading the data. A progressive genetic deterioration in the Y chromosome. How long? 3 generations at most without intervention. Her playful manner fell away, revealing steel beneath. Our males sicken and die before reaching maturity. Each generation fewer are born. Soon, there will be none. She swept her arm toward the magnificent city around them. And then, all this dies with us. And you think I can help? I'm a researcher, not a genetic engineer. The prophecies say Earth's blood holds the key. She stepped closer, her presence overwhelming. Help us, and you will know power and pleasure beyond your wildest dreams. Refuse. Her hand traced his cheek again, this time with a hint of claw. And your blood will serve us another way. Jonas's mind raced through the implications. The genetic sequences he'd seen were fascinating, suggesting an engineered species with ties to human DNA. The scientific opportunities alone were staggering. And then there was Kaya herself, whose touch sent electricity through his nerves. "I'll help if I can," he said carefully, "but I need to understand these trials first." Her smile returned, bright and dangerous as lightning. "Oh, you'll understand them intimately, Skyfallen One." She turned to the gathered crowd. "Prepare the chambers of challenge. Tonight, we feast. Tomorrow, we begin the games." She gave Jonas a look that made his pulse spike. The feast that followed was a blur of exotic foods, potent drinks, and increasingly bold flirtation from Kaya. By the time she led him to his chambers, luxurious, but clearly designed for observation, Jonas's head was spinning with questions and possibilities. "Rest well, Jonas of Earth," Kaya said at his door. "Tomorrow will test every fiber of your being." She leaned in close, her scent intoxicating. "Try not to disappoint me." Before he could respond, she was gone, leaving him alone with his thoughts and the growing certainty that he was in far deeper than any research mission had prepared him for. In the privacy of his room, he looked out over the bioluminescent city and tried to make sense of his situation. Somewhere up there, the Odyssey was probably searching for him. But as he watched Kaya's silhouette pass behind a translucent wall, he wasn't entirely sure he wanted to be found. "Well," he muttered to himself, "at least it's not another boring research mission." The moons of Eden had long risen, casting their ethereal glow over the bioluminescent spires of the city. Jonas lay in his chambers, his mind racing with the day's revelations. The trials, the prophecy, Kaya, it all felt surreal. His rational mind tried to piece it together, but there was something deeper stirring within him, something primal that he couldn't quite shake. The memory of Kaya's silver eyes and her electric touch lingered like a current in his veins. Just as he was beginning to drift into a restless sleep, the door to his chambers whispered open. Jonas sat up, his pulse quickening. In the dim light of the moons, Kaya stood silhouetted in the doorway, her form almost glowing with an otherworldly beauty. The sheer fabric she wore was practically translucent, clinging to her athletic body in ways that defied gravity. Each step she took toward him was deliberate, predatory, and yet undeniably alluring. "I thought you might be scared," she purred, her voice soft but laced with a dangerous edge. "A stranger alone in a new world. It can be overwhelming." Jonas swallowed, his heart racing. "I don't scare that easily," he replied, though his voice carried a hint of nervousness. Kaya smiled, that same smile that had both teased and challenged him earlier. She moved closer, the scent of her intoxicating. With a slow, graceful motion, she let the sheer fabric slip from her shoulders, allowing it to drift silently to the floor. Her skin gleamed in the moonlight, a deep oceanic blue that seemed to shimmer with every breath she took. "I thought," she continued, her voice like velvet, "that perhaps you might need some comfort." She began to move her body, swaying with a fluid grace, each motion a seductive dance that seemed to make the very air around her hum with energy. Her silver eyes never left his as she circled him like a predator, her hips rolling with a hypnotic rhythm that left him breathless. "You've faced so much, Skyfallen One," she whispered, her voice a low, throaty murmur. "Surely you deserve a moment of pleasure before the trials begin." Jonas's breath caught in his throat as Kaya's dance grew more intimate, her body drawn closer to his, yet always just out of reach. Her fingers grazed his skin lightly, sending sparks of electricity through him. He felt a pull toward her, an instinctive urge that made his heart pound in his chest. "You think you can resist me, Earthman?" she teased, her lips curling into a smirk as she slowly straddled his lap, her weight pressing down on him with a heat that made his head spin. Her hands found his shoulders, her touch both firm and possessive. "I've read your kind in the stars. You're more drawn to us than you want to admit." Before he could respond, Kaya leaned in, her lips barely brushing his ear as she whispered, "And I am more than you can imagine." Her body moved against his, her hips rocking gently as she teased him with every slow, deliberate motion. Jonas was caught between wanting to fight the sensation and surrendering to the magnetic pull of her touch. He had never experienced anything like it. Her scent, her skin, the heat of her breath against his neck, it was overwhelming, yet intoxicating in a way that made resistance seem futile. Kaya's breath came quicker as she pressed her body closer to his, her hands trailing down his chest, exploring his form with a hunger that spoke of more than just curiosity. She was testing him, pushing him, driving him to the edge of control. "Let go, Jonas," she murmured, her voice barely a whisper as she leaned in to kiss him, her lips soft and warm against his. "Tonight, you are mine." The kiss ignited something within him, a fire that had been smoldering since their first encounter. He pulled her closer, his hand sliding up her back, feeling the smooth warmth of her skin beneath his fingertips. She responded eagerly, her body pressing against his with a need that mirrored his own. Time seemed to blur as they moved together, the heat between them building with every touch, every kiss, every breath. Kaya's rhythm became more urgent, her moans of pleasure filling the chamber as she rode him with a primal, almost predatory grace. Her eyes never left his, silver gleaming in the moonlight as their bodies intertwined, lost in the rhythm of their shared desire. Jonas was consumed by her, by the intensity of her presence, by the way she moved, by the soft purring sound she made as her body pressed against his. She was both fierce and tender, her touch a mix of dominance and passion that left him breathless. As the night wore on, their movements slowed, the frenzy giving way to a softer, more intimate connection. They lay entwined, their bodies slick with sweat, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. Jonas stood in the arena of living stone, sweat dripping down his neck as three warriors circled him. The air thrummed with the low chant of hundreds watching from tiered balconies above. Kaya's voice cut through the noise from her obsidian throne. First trial, survive the dance of blades without drawing blood. Fail, and the temple claims your life. The tallest warrior lunged first, her curved sword singing through the humid air. Jonas sidestepped, the blade grazing his envirosuit. The crowd hissed. They want spectacle, he realized. Not efficiency. You move like prey, Lyra sneered, twirling twin daggers. She'd been glaring since the feast, her distrust palpable. And you fight like someone compensating, he shot back, ducking under her strike. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Kaya's lips twitched. The third warrior moved differently, Zia, the young initiate. Her strikes were precise but hesitant. When Lyra feinted left, Zia's blade nicked Jonas's forearm. The crowd roared. Blood welled crimson against his gray suit. Kaya stood. The temple judges. The stone beneath his feet began glowing. Jonas's mind raced, biorhythmic sensors. He pressed his bleeding arm against the floor. The glow intensified, then faded. Clever, Kaya murmured. He fed the arena his pain to satisfy its hunger. That night, Nyla the Elder cornered him in the archives. You altered the trial's outcome, her clawed finger traced glowing genetic maps on a crystal wall. We've had 43 males fail that test. How many were taught to lose, Jonas countered, studying the helix patterns. This degradation isn't natural. Someone engineered your dependency on external DNA. Nyla's breath hitched. The sacred texts forbid such talk. Your texts are damaged code, he tapped a corrupted sequence. Like a virus eating your future. Flashback, 5 years earlier. Kaya knelt before the tribe's previous high priestess, her mother's corpse cooling nearby. You will lead us, the elder croaked, pressing a neural shard to Kaya's temple. The last pure daughter. The shard's upload burned, centuries of encrypted histories, the terrible truth of their engineered origins. When Kaya awoke screaming, the elders swore her visions were divine. Present day. Lyra ambushed Jonas at dawn, her blade at his throat. You whisper poison to Nyla. I speak truth. Your people were designed to require human males. Like tools needing specific fuel. Her dagger drew blood. We are perfection. Perfection doesn't crumble, he gasped. Let me fix this. A gong sounded, second trial. Lyra shoved him toward the arena. Die quickly, outsider. The crowd fell silent as Kaya descended, holding 2 neural shards. Trial of truth, face our history. She pressed a shard to his temple. Suddenly Jonas is Kaya, 7 years old, watching her brother convulse as his Y chromosomes unravel. Then he's Nyla, centuries younger, injecting a human prisoner with mutagenic serum. Finally, he's the original engineer, splicing alien DNA with human stock, whispering, "Forgive me," as the lab explodes. Jonas collapsed, vomiting. Kaya's eyes blazed. You see now? We are your sin. Fix us. The third trial's horn sounded. Jonas traced the glowing glyphs in the temple's underbelly, Zia hovering nervously behind him. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. The sacred archives are forbidden to outsiders. Sacred or censored? He pointed to a faded mural showing blue-skinned scientists splicing DNA with humans. Your ancestors weren't just priests, they were geneticists. This temple isn't a holy site. It's a lab. Zia's breath hitched. The keepers say those images are metaphors. Then why does this metaphor show this? Jonas activated a hidden panel, revealing cryopods containing human males. Their bodies were fused with alien biology, skin mottled blue and gray. Flashback, 48 hours earlier. Kaya pressed her forehead to Jonas's in the aftermath of passion, their sweat mingling. When the trials end, she murmured, you could rule beside me. Her claws pricked his bare chest. Or become another specimen in our vaults. Charming options, Jonas said, catching her wrist. How about I fix your DNA instead? Her laugh was edged with desperation. 3 generations of men have tried. Their bones fertilize our gardens. Present day. Lyra cornered Jonas in the gene-forge chamber, her blade at his throat. You've turned Kaya's mind with your human tricks. She turned herself. Jonas gestured to the holographic DNA strands above them. Your people were designed to hybridize with humans. But someone sabotaged the code, see these decay markers. The warrior hesitated, her gaze flickering to the data. Jonas pressed his advantage. Your hatred. Programmed. Your loyalty to dead traditions. A glitch. You're angry at the wrong enemy. Trial of unity. The crowd roared as Jonas faced his final test, a melding ritual with Kaya. Neural filaments snaked from the temple walls, connecting their temples. Brace yourself, Kaya warned. The joining breaks weaker minds. Their consciousnesses collided. Jonas sees Kaya's childhood, the corpse of her brother dissolving into genetic slurry. Kaya experiences Jonas's memory of Earth, millions of unrelated DNA strands in a thriving gene pool. Shared pain as their nervous systems synchronize. The temple flared crimson. Impossible. Nyla gasped. The bond is complete. That night, Jonas awoke chained in the vaults, Kaya's betrayal burning worse than the neural burns on his skin. The council demands your sacrifice, she said, avoiding his gaze. My position is untenable. He laughed bitterly. You knew this would happen. The bond showed me, you need a scapegoat to maintain power. Her silver eyes glistened. The tribe must survive. Even if she turned to leave. Wait. Jonas rattled his chains. The answer isn't in my blood. It's in yours. Let me prove it. Kaya paused at the door. Dawn light fractured her silhouette. One chance, sky fallen. Fail, and I'll kill you myself. Twist. In the lab, Jonas injected Kaya with a serum derived from their bonded DNA. Her scream shook the temple. Warriors burst in as her skin rippled, human pigment breaking through blue. Blasphemy. Lyra roared. Evolution, Jonas countered, showing the readouts. Your genome is repairing itself. Kaya stared at her now modeled hands. The crowd fell silent. Then Nyla stepped forward, trembling. The prophecy, it's not about Earth's blood. It's about mixing. Lyra's blade clattered to the floor. Kaya stared at her modeled hands, human pigmentation spreading like wildfire across her blue skin. The crowd's murmurs crescendoed into panic. Lyra lunged for Jonas, but Nyla intercepted her. Wait, the elder barked. The temple's light, look. The bioluminescent spires above pulsed crimson, a hue unseen in generations. Flashback, the betrayal. Centuries earlier. The chief geneticist, Kaya's ancestor, watched her human lover convulse in the Geneforge. Forgive me, she whispered, sabotaging the code that tied their species' survival to Earth. Freedom requires sacrifice. Present day. You've broken the sacred balance. Lyra accused, her warriors forming a circle around Jonas. Kaya stepped between them, her hybridized skin shimmering. He's revealed truth, she growled. We were never meant to be parasites. Zia approached timidly, holding a data crystal. The archives, they show our founders chose this decay. To control us through scarcity. The hidden vault. Jonas and Kaya descended into the temple's heart, guided by Zia's hacked codes. Your ancestors stored something here, Jonas muttered. A failsafe. The door hissed open, revealing rows of cryopods, male hybrids in stasis, their genetics stable. Kaya recoiled. Our brothers. We were told they perished. Preserved, Jonas corrected. Your leaders wanted dependency, not solutions. Uprising. Lyra's faction attacked, energy blades slicing through ancient stone. Traitors, she screamed. You defile our purity. Jonas activated the vault's defenses, sealing them in. We need to wake one, he urged. Proof the cure works. Kaya hesitated. If you're wrong, you'll kill me. Jonas injected a stasis pod. Worth the risk. The awakening. The hybrid male's silver eyes snapped open. Sister, he rasped, touching Kaya's face. You, changed. Outside, Lyra's hammering ceased. The crowd gasped as the revived male emerged, alive, healthy, stable. Nyla fell to her knees. The prophecy, we misinterpreted. The sacrifice wasn't death, it was change. Twist. As the tribe celebrated, alarms blared. The temple's central AI awoke, its hologram mirroring Kaya's features. Containment breached, it intoned. Purging protocol initiated. The cryopods began melting. Kaya gripped Jonas's arm. You didn't fix us. You woke the architect's curse.